Now that he's spent over a year talking about idealism, Inspiring Philosophy has decided to come up with the details of his position. So this time, Inspiring Philosophy is saying that information is properties. If that's the case, he should have simply went with the word properties all along, but then again it's quite likely that he just randomly picked this definition out of the handful of definitions idealists have been using. For some reason he has repeatedly said that information must be contingent on a substance, but he hasn't really explained why. All he has said is that a single property cannot exist on its own. This is correct, and only a Platonist would say otherwise, but this doesn't mean that there has to be anything more than properties. Proponents of bundle theory would say that all objects are bundles of properties. According to IP, the information of objects like houses and rocks is fundamentally mental because it is contingent on a substance he calls mind. He says that it exists like thoughts in a larger mind. However, IP says that God is not mentally visualizing the objects. Rather, he is thinking about the words that describe them. This position doesn't explain anything. From the mere fact that God is thinking about the details of the world around us, there is no reason why we should be able to observe anything. If IP is correct, then God just has a list of descriptive statements within consciousness. But that doesn't even imply that I should perceive the things being described. Rats tries to escape the hard problem by holding that consciousness is all that exists. He says he doesn't have to explain how consciousness arises from something else because there is nothing else. For rats, qualia are what have perceptions, even though that's gibberish, and collections of qualia coalesce into perspectives for no reason. At this point, Ratz's position, which is sometimes called the Ratzian paradigm, has been completely refuted and rejected by almost everyone. Instead, Inspiring Philosophy and his thoughtless minion Animating Rebel believe in mind plus consciousness. They believe that a substance called mind is what is fundamental, and that exists independent of consciousness. So they have to explain why mind is able to have qualia. Animating Rebel admits he cannot solve the hard problem, but he thinks he can somehow avoid it by redefining words. He says, the problem with this argument is that I don't believe mind arises from non-mind. Well, yes he does according to the definition of mind that normal people use. However, Animating Rebel is just mimicking IP's strategy of using the word mind to mean precisely that which isn't mind. Animating Rebel says that idealism is still superior because it at least provides something that is capable of consciousness. But how does he know this? He doesn't. He has simply asserted that there is this thing called the I and defined it as having the capacity for consciousness. He has done absolutely nothing to show how such a thing could exist on idealism. His argument is identical to saying that idealism allows for a thing that is capable of consciousness because idealism allows for a thing that is capable of consciousness. He actually reasons like this. He needed a thing with the capacity for consciousness, so he came up with the I, defined it as that which has the capacity for consciousness, and said it exists on his view. In no way did he account for anything.